It's a tremendous honor to the President would place his confidence in me in a position of such importance. It's also a tremendous responsibility, and the job of the Secretary of State is to execute on the foreign policy set by the elected President of the United States, and I hope to have the opportunity to do it if my current colleagues here in the U.S. Senate confirm me.
All right, Marco Rubio, you made it official. His name was first mentioned a couple of days ago. Donald Trump's choice for Secretary of State officially offered it up as such. And Marco Rubio waiting to see what his colleagues in the United States Senate have to say. Senator Mark Warner is one of them, the Democrat of Virginia, kind enough to join us. Senator, if you had to vote now on Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, you would vote how?
Well, Neil, I've worked really closely with Marco Rubio. We don't always agree, but I have a huge respect for him. I think he's a good choice. But all these are serious, serious jobs, and it's why the Senate has an advise and consent process. It's why we have open hearings so that we can go through that process. But I think Marco will be confirmed.
Matt Gaetz for Attorney General.
Wow. I wonder, I don't know Mr. Gaetz. Again, he'll go through the process, but I kind of wonder whether he could actually get confirmed even by the House Republican Conference based upon at least the stories for the last couple of years.
So how do you feel about even going the recess appointment route that obviously Donald Trump favors to expedite these? How do you think that would go even for him?
When we're talking with something as important as the Attorney General, I think, the Senate deserves to go through that advise and consent process. I think Mr. Gaetz, I'm not going to weigh in until I get a chance to meet or hear how he presents. But the idea that you're going to somehow, change the rules to drop somebody in on a recess basis, I think undermines the position. And again, there was a reason why the founders set it up this way. The president gets to pick their person. I'm a former governor. I respect that right. But you also got to go through a confirmation process. And I think all of these nominees will be stronger if they get through that nomination process.
What's your biggest concern with Congressman Gaetz?
I've not even followed. I know, all of the kind of, not even talking about some of the accusations. I'm just talking about some of the internal Republican politics. So, again, I don't think if I've met him, I don't recall. I'm going to give him the courtesy of a meeting and going through a process. But I do think, we've got an incredibly dangerous world we live in right now. We've got Russia with Ukraine. We're hearing about these Chinese hacks that I think you're going to hear a lot more about. We've got North Korea. We've got a technology competition. We've got the border to deal with. We have hugely serious problems in this country, and we need serious people to take these problems on. And President Trump, is somebody that I didn't agree with, but he's the president-elect. I'm going to see where I can support him. But I think part of showing seriousness is who you put into these positions, because they're not all solvable with, the snap of a wrist.
Well, as you know, Republicans have said the Justice Department under Merrick Garland has hardly been fair, that it was weaponized to go after Donald Trump and others. What do you think when you hear that? And this is Donald Trump's answer for that.
Well, I would disagree with that characterization of the Justice Department. I think the earlier reporter talked about these career officials have worked under Republican presidents, Democrat presidents. If there was evidence of outlandish behavior, it should be gone after. I'm fine with that, but I don't think we've seen on a factual basis. But I also think at the end of the day, as I think others have said, I think maybe again your reporter said, Mr. Gaetz was not on anybody's bingo card for that position.
Well, that is true. I did want to get your reaction to it. There's been a lot of Democratic hand-wringing after the election. How did they lose and what happened? I had a chance to catch up, Senator, with Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, who said it was your own doing, not you specifically, sir, but Democrats' own doing. I want you to react to this from Sean O'Brien.
They lost touch with the working class people. It was clearly evident in the election results. And look, this was an economic election. Instead of embracing and trying to find a solution to the problem, The Democrats took a position that their opinion mattered, and that's all that mattered. And they wanted to talk down to a lot of working class people. The Democrat Party needs to take a look in the mirror and say, you know, maybe Chuck Schumer's time is over. Maybe Dianne Pelosi's time is over. Maybe they should take a page out of Joe Biden's book and step aside.
All right, he was talking about Nancy Pelosi, of course, a former speaker, and he was talking about Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, that it's time for these guys to call it a day. What did you make of that?
What I think is that a lot of folks in our country, they're not going to listen to your policy positions if you feel like you're being talked down to, or folks you don't understand or disrespect their culture or their way of life. And you know, as somebody who sponsored a NASCAR when I first ran for governor and had a bluegrass song, and I didn't try to pretend that I wasn't who I was, but I was trying to say, you know, getting and relating to somebody's culture is something that I think sometimes Democrats have not been great at. I do think on the policies, you know, we've seen lots of these blind tests where they actually prefer, well, raise the minimum wage, or let's let working people have a voice, or let's try to see if we can, you know, end up driving down costs in terms of price gouging. But, you know, but if you don't, if the brand, and I will acknowledge the brand's got some issues right now. And I think there's got to be a lot of introspection going on. And I think how we talk with people, and actually, frankly, how we listen to people, not just talk to people, but listen, is where it starts. I still fundamentally believe that the best politics in this country are done, it sounds old and naive, but in a bipartisan way, so that at the end of the day, both teams own the solution. Because no matter what we do as Congress or as a president, you're never going to get 100% right. So you got to have that willingness to work together and come back.
There's a concept. Senator Warner, always good seeing you. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark Warner of Virginia. That'll do it here.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.